Welcome back. We're joined now by the Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, Ryan Sabey. Isabel Oakeshott still with me. By the way, we were talking earlier, Ryan, I'm sure you're going to agree with this. Does Rishi Sunak really think anybody believes him that he's been secretly planning this shock announcement for months? It doesn't stack up, does it?
I get the impression there was a meeting at the back end of last week where he decided to press the button on this. He called in his closest advisors and decided this is the moment. And when he can hold a secret within 5 or 6 people in Downing Street. Once you go beyond that, you're at risk of it being leaked. So that was the moment when he decided that was it.
Yeah, he's been spooked into this. By the way, Isabel, we got 2 headlines. We were discussing this time last night potential headlines, and we came up with Drowned and Out, Mirror, and Things Can Only Get Wetter, Telegraph. So where we can get jobs at both those papers. But I don't want jobs, certainly not on the Mirror. Work there already. Terrible place, terrible paper. Now, I'm sure you'll agree, Ryan. We're going to talk about the Rwanda scheme in just a little while with Stephen Wolfe. But what I want to ask you, Ryan, is this story about apparently Tory backbenchers are absolutely seething with rage about this, being kept in the dark. Many of them felt that they would have stood a better chance in the autumn, November maybe. And Sunak's first announcement soon after his election announcement was, I have no plans to meet my backbenchers. Now, the word is that, yes, he was spooked by the spectre of Nigel Farage, no doubt about that, but also that he was spooked by the spectre of yet another Tory rebellion, and that Graham Brady had let it be known to a select few that he was nearing the magic number, I think of 48.
Early 50s.
50 or so no confidence letters, and there could have been a prospect of yet another Tory leadership.
There has been talk about that, and that was one of the things that could have actually triggered him going to the country early. But I think all this talk of putting in confidence letters, trying to get rid of Rishi Sunak because you don't agree with his general election proposal, I just think is slightly fanciful. I think this is a little bit of, the initial shock of people thinking, oh, I thought we had 6 months left in our jobs, but actually we've only just got a few weeks. All those things I wanted to do over the summer, whether it was socially around Parliament, whether it was bringing in legislation, bringing up issues in debates, getting on with constituency issues, all that was just cut down completely.
Or even just to bring it on to a simpler level, having an income. I mean, a lot of those people are going to lose their jobs, and we'd all prefer to have 6 months notice than 6 weeks notice if we're going to lose our jobs. So they will have been thinking, well, at least I've got my income for X number of months left, and I can begin to plot my exit, and we know that quite a lot of them have already been quietly lining things up. Suddenly, they've been thrown to the wolves as they see it, and they're staring at the prospect of no money, frankly. Although you get if you lose your seat, I think you do get something, don't you?
I think that's if you stand. You get so you have to stand. So I think an MP got caught out last time because Labour MP moved to that Change Party, but actually stood in another seat, and then she didn't get the money, and she said they need to change the rules.
Heartbreaking, heartbreaking.
Those rules, eh? Did you see John Swinney banging on about that? McDermott. Is it Pat McFadden?
Pat McFadden.
Yeah. So up in Scotland, he's got this. He owns this house, but next door he rented
a property next door to the house he
rents a property next door
because of the expenses rules.
And Mike Graham had him on his show this morning, and Mike said, "What do you think? That sounds a bit crooked." It's the rules. I stuck to the rules. That's all they ever say. Rules. Those are the rules. Well, Mr. McFadden, those rules are very, very wrong, and they seem pretty bent to us. So how about changing them? But that's another issue. So what's the mood today among? Tory MPs we've discussed, they're not happy, obviously. Some of them, as you say, because it's a pure case of 6 months more income that they may lose out on. But what's the feeling, I guess, in Tory Towers about the shock announcement? Because, although in my view it was clearly made in haste, well, in fact we know it was because due to Miss Oakeshott's inside sources about this, he made it very hastily. But despite that, the shock has caught Labour and indeed everyone else on the hop. So in some respects, it's been a success for Sunak.
Yeah, but I think for the individual MPs, they can see the big picture of being 20-odd points behind in the polls. And I think maybe a year or so ago, if you had a majority of 10, 12, 15,000, you thought, you know what, I'll be safe. The national picture doesn't look good, but it'll be all right on the night for me. But actually, as it gets closer and closer, that sort of 10 or 15,000 majority doesn't look quite as safe, because if you build in a few thousand for Jeremy Corbyn, a few thousand for the Brexit vote, you're sort of in that sort of parameter of it's going to be pretty uncomfortable, and they're going to have to hit the doors. So this is going to be the telling point of all those MPs, whether they've actually worked the doors in their constituency over the past 5 or 10 years. Because if they haven't, and they don't know their constituents and don't know who to knock up on the day to get out and vote, they're going to lose their seat.
And what have they got to sell on the door? That's the hardest thing. I mean, are they really going to stand there and say the Rwanda scheme? I mean, they'll just be laughed out of town.
Keir's got a, whatever you think about it, there is a retail offer. There's the 6 points. What have the Conservatives got? Economy's on the up, and we might get a flight off to Rwanda. What else is there?
But he said he's not going to do that. He announced that today, so that's not going to happen. We're going to discuss that in just a little while. The potential scandal of £500 million down the drain for the square root of sod all nothing. But let me ask you this. Apparently, if Keir Starmer is to achieve an overall majority of 1 seat, he'll be hoping to do better than that. But if he gets a 1-seat overall majority, he needs a swing of 12.5%, which is virtually unprecedented. So are the odds stacked against him, or will he get a bigger swing than that and get the kind of majority that he's really looking for?
I think if you speak to Labour strategists, those people at the very top of the Labour Party, they've looked at these figures and how it's all working over the past year or so. Under Jeremy Corbyn, you probably did need a swing of 12, 13% to get that majority of 1. But where Keir Starmer and his new team have attacked the public in terms of trying to get votes, they realise they're stacking up the votes as far as they're concerned, in all the right places. So instead of Jeremy Corbyn building up those votes in towns and cities where they're probably going to win anyway, so Keir Starmer has built a sort of even spread around the country, and you saw some of that with the local council elections where they won Milton Keynes, Thurrock, other places. They came close in Harlow, which are seen in these bellwether seats. So if they can replicate that on a general election, they may only need a swing of 7-8% to get that majority of 1.
Okay, good point. Interesting. Last question to you, Ryan. Very non-committal splash on the Sun this morning. This election is going to ruin the sport, the Euros, and all that. Ballots, as I think they put it. So I'm an old Sun man. I used to work on the Sun in the old days, and our approach to elections, when they said, which party are you going to support? We always said the winner. So I know you're not going to answer this, but which party is the Sun going to support?
I think what we'll do is we'll look at the offering from both parties. Our readers have been affected by the cost of living crisis, and we'll see what they've got to offer. We'll wait for those manifestos. And
so it's genuinely in the offing. You're going to decide over the next few weeks, I guess, based on the kind of campaigns both parties run.
Yeah, what the offer is to our readers.
Yeah. Well, look forward to whichever way the Sun plumps, because it's always a factor. It's the somewhat done it. I was working there then. Ryan Sabey, thank you very much. Great to see you. Ryan Sabey there, the Deputy Political Editor of the Sun.